Hey there, RC Girl here. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm super excited to share my latest build with you guys. This is the TT-01E Euro Truck. It's a 1/14 scale RC racing model I built from a Tamiya kit. I'll cover everything you guys need to build one of these of your own. My early upgrades, painting the body, decal application, and my first test run. I'm gonna cover it all. Make sure to stick around as well because I'm gonna be sharing some insider setup tips from some of my friends that race these competitively, so make sure to watch the full video. Let's dive on in. So Euro Truck racing is actually a real form of motorsports. I am brand new to it. Real versions of these are over 1100 horsepower. They use the same closed circuit tracks like those used in Formula One and touring car events. They weigh over 5 tons and can reach speeds of 100 miles an hour, all made more dramatic because these trucks are so freaking big. And this specific body is actually modeled after a real race truck. This is a 2019 version of Norbert Kiss's actual race truck. He's tied for the most wins in the European Truck Racing Championship. I first came to the RC version when I toured Aiming Hobbies last year as part of their grand opening. I will link to that hobby shop tour video here if you want to check it out. After that event, Tamiya actually sent me a kit to build one of my own. Something to know, if you're planning on racing your Euro truck, each track has their own rules and regulations for what you can mod and change on the stock vehicle, so make sure you know those before you build your truck. And as far as skill level, this is probably going to be great for a beginner intermediate RC enthusiast. Some of the screws are pretty difficult to get in, require some steady hands and decent pressure. The Lexan body is a little bit tricky to cut out, and the decals are pretty intricate and need to be hand cut with a sharp hobby blade. Probably not the best kit for younger kids unless you plan to give them some substantial support. Before we jump into the TT-01 build, you may have noticed that my videos have tapered off a little bit on YouTube. I'm actually in the process of buying a house. I have sent over pretty much every piece of information about myself, W-2s, social security numbers, bank information through the internet. I feel super exposed. I'm hugely grateful to our sponsor for this video, Incogni. The timing literally could not be more perfect. Just like you like to be in control on the track, the same should be the case of your personal information that's available online. Companies are tracking everything we do online, every keystroke, every search, those parts that you search for your next RC build. Not only that though, they are selling our information, which can end up in the hands of scammers and spammers. And during a credit check, there was actually fraud on my account, which literally was the worst nightmare to get removed. Incogni reaches out to data brokers on your behalf, requesting that they remove your personal information and data. Whole process is automated. Getting started with Incogni is super simple. In just a few clicks, I created an account, provided the most basic information for them to find me, and they automatically contacted over 230 online data brokers and requested that my information is removed from their websites. Oh my gosh, 224 sites have my information. What the heck? That's so crazy. If there's a specific site not on Incogni's list, they have a new custom removals feature where you can submit an unlimited number of links to Incogni's privacy experts. After feeling so exposed, having sent so much personal information over the internet, I feel so much better having my information removed from these sites. Take your personal information back as well with Incogni. You can use code RCGirl using the link in my description box. You'll get 60% off an annual plan. Huge thank you to Incogni for protecting me online and sponsoring this video, making it all possible. Let's go build our TT-01. Inside the box, you're gonna find the TT-01E chassis parts, a Euro Truck style polycarbonate body. This comes in multiple pieces, friction shocks, plastic bushings, a brushed motor speed control setup, on-road racing tires and plastic rims, an uncut decal set, and Tamiya's classic hardware bags labeled A through E, as well as quite a few parts trees. Before we build this kit, let's talk about what's needed to complete it. My kit included a brush motor and speed control, but you'll need to pick up a 2S LiPo battery, charger, receiver transmitter, and a steering servo. One thing I would highly recommend, make sure to pick up the 2 Tamiya screwdrivers recommended to build this kit. Most of the hardware is two types of Phillips head. I used what I had lying around as far as screwdrivers. Luckily, I didn't strip anything, but better fitting tools will be a lifesaver. They're super cheap, and especially if you plan to build more Tamiya kits in the future, they are great to have on hand. And a few other tools I used for this build: flush cutters for cutting out parts off the parts trees, Lexan scissors for cutting the body out. You'll need a body reamer to drill holes for the body mounting post and for body assembling and attaching scale accessories. Needle nose pliers, a wrench for getting your tires on and off, diff grease, shock oils, a sharp hobby knife, CA glue. I use both thin and medium for this. And for the body, you're gonna need some Tamiya PS or polycarbonate specific, Lexan specific paints. I wanted to do a replica of what was on the box, so I picked up black, silver, matte clear, bright red. Actually, I used regular red, which wasn't a direct match. I think bright red would be a better match for the decals. And one bonus thing is tint film. I tinted the windows with actual tint film. Probably gonna be a lot easier if you go with the Tamiya smoke paint as well. Totally up to you. Lastly, black Plastidip to back everything and add a protective rubberized coating so that your paint doesn't scratch off. I completed the build with some lighting accents from my Trick RC, and then two early upgrades I would highly recommend. The class of oval racing for my local club actually allows only two things, and that is upgraded oil-filled shocks and the metal bearing set. We'll talk about all this in more detail. Let's dive on in. The manual for this is a pretty decent one, a little bit confusing in parts, but the hardware and other parts are to scale. So if you are unsure whether that's the right screw, you can just match it up to the screws in the manual photos to make sure that you're using the correct hardware for that specific step. Some tips for building a kit: always a great idea to organize all your hardware before you start a section. It's gonna make things easier to pick out as you go, and a screw catcher mat like this one from Cal RC with all these little compartments and a magnetic surface to catch anything you drop is going to make building a kit so much more organized. I'm also obsessed with this mobile pit light. It attaches to most surfaces. Huge thank you to Cal RC, who's generously given my channel subscribers 10% off their wide range of RC maintenance and pit items at calrc.com. Just use code RCGirl at checkout. The TT-01 platform is compatible with several different vehicle classes featuring different bodies, including both the Euro Truck and touring cars. It's a shaft-driven four-wheel drive chassis. Front and rear differentials include all metal gears with a plastic drive shaft. I actually had to go in and rebuild parts of the diff, forgot a pinion in one and a bearing in another, so just make sure you pay attention to the manual better than I did, otherwise you have to go back in there. Here's a racing tip thanks to Jason Hood, who races oval at Superior RC in Junction City. He also gave me input and advice on my Tamiya F104 Formula One vehicle. He said to fill the front diff with heavier weight oil. You want the front end to pull you around the track. Other folks have suggested up to 1 million in the front. The heaviest diff fluid I had on hand in my stash was 100K, so that's what I did. At a minimum, heavier in the front, lighter in the back. And unlike crawlers, where I'm used to more of a light greasing, you're going to want to pack it pretty full. This is also a step where if you picked up the upgraded bearing kit, you're gonna wanna swap out the metal bushings for bearings. Now it's time to install our electronics. I installed the brushed 540 size motor included in the kit. It includes a 19-tooth metal pinion gear and a plastic motor mounting plate. The ESC in the kit is a Hobbywing THW1060 brushed ESC, which is 2 to 3S capable. It has a few drive modes. If you're racing, make sure to move the jumper plug to just have forward and braking. No reverse is allowed. I also cut off the Tamiya battery connector and soldered on an XT60. Since there was a lot of excess cable, I actually removed the bullet connectors and spliced it directly to the ESC. Looking back now, I should have actually just unsoldered the motor cables completely and just soldered the ESC cables directly to the motor. Whoops, my bad. For my servo, I had a few lying around, so to keep costs down, just ended up using one of those. Ended up going with the Traxxas 2075X metal gear steering servo. I think this was out of one of my TRX4s. It is a little bit slow, but I'm gonna give it a go. For my receiver transmitter, I'm actually trying out my new Radiomaster MT12. I picked this up particularly for my Surface FPV setup. They utilize the open source ELRS protocol, which is a long range system. I really like that receivers are cheap. It has 16 plus channels and low latency for racing. We're only going to be using 2 of the channels here, one for steering, one for throttle. I soldered in a battery voltage telemetry sensor, which was included in line with the ESC cable. So once we plug our battery in, we're going to get battery voltage telemetry info on the screen. For the battery, my racing friend Jason uses a 5200 milliamp 2S, but the closest I had was an Ovonic 5000 milliamp 2S hard pack. He said the weight of the battery helps keep the truck planted when you're racing. Mine was too tall to use the stock battery holder, so I found a 3D file online and just printed my own. This one didn't require any mods to the chassis, but if you prefer, you can actually Dremel out the bottom tabs in the tub chassis to make it fit, which brings down your CG. My upgraded shocks arrived from A-Main Hobbies. This kit comes with really cheap friction shocks, no oil, just a spring, plastic bodies. As an upgrade, I went with the Yeah Racing 50mm touring shocks. They are aluminum bodied, they have a threaded collar, they come fully assembled. You just have to add your own shock oil. I went with 30 weight. I like to use my 3D printed shock box here to hold them while I'm working on them. After I've added oil and cycled the piston a few times, I let them sit to get the air bubbles out before adding the cap. They came with 3 different weight springs and several different options for piston tuning. I am still a newbie racer, so if you have recommendations on which springs and which shock weight oil to go for with oval racing, shoot me a comment. Let's talk about the wheels and tires. I'm using the stock on-run wheels and the plastic rims included in the kit. I'll have a separate video on gluing tires soon, but my preference is to use lightweight CA, which runs easier and uses capillary action to fill the rims where the tire bead sits. I've really been liking the Starbond CAs since they don't dry, usually typically milky white, they will dry and clear. I slowly move my way around the tire until everything is bonded. I recently picked up these tire bands from A-Main Hobbies to hold the bead of the tire in place while it dries. I like to double check and make sure that I didn't miss any spots and redo those if needed. I was told that stiffening the front sidewalls of our tires with a coat of CA can really help with racing. To do that, I use the medium CA here so we don't get any drips. With a small zigzag along the sidewall, I use a gloved finger to spread the CA evenly along the sidewall from rim to tread, but make sure not to get any on the tread part, otherwise your truck will slip and slide around the track. Some tracks do not allow this mod, so please check with your local club before doing this. I will link out to a video by Spencer Rivkin, obviously way better racer than I am. He has a great video on this technique. I will put a link in the description box. Probably good also to pick up a spare set of tires since I've heard that you go through quite a few if you're racing. That is it for all our electronics and the chassis build. Let's take a look at how I finished the body. The Lexan body comes in 2 pieces and you're going to need to cut out several parts from each of them. I like to use the snap and score method here, which is going to give you the cleanest lines, no sanding required. For that, use a sharp hobby blade and be very, very careful. Trace over the cut lines on the exterior of the Lexan and then use Lexan body cutting scissors to get the cut going. Then you're going to slowly tear around the cut line. It can be a little difficult going around the corners, so just take your time, but it comes out super clean. Then we're going to wash the body with some soapy water to remove any oils from your hands and the mold release from the factory that will prevent your paint from adhering. Make sure it's fully dry before you start painting and make sure your overspray film is kept on the exterior. With Lexan, you're going to be painting the inside of the body. You're going to want to do your darkest colors first so that you get the cleanest lines and that you don't alter the color when darker colors are applied over lighter colors. I masked off the sections here for the different colors. We're going to be starting with black. A few other tips here for painting Lexan. You can let your cans soak in warm water for a while before using them, which is going to give you a really clean spray. Always remember your first coat you're going to want to make sure is your lightest coat and let it fully dry in between coats. You can use a hairdryer here to speed the process. Make sure to wipe your spray nozzles after every use so that it doesn't clog. Then apply several coats until you can't see any light coming through when you hold the body up to light. Try not to start and stop your sprays over the body so you don't get big splotchy areas. And lastly, I like to back everything in black Plastidip or clear Plastidip to protect the paint finish from scratching. Also gives it a clean look so you don't have tons of different colors showing through underneath your body. This build calls for a matte clear top coat on some sections, and instead of pulling off all the overspray film and remasking with tape, I used a hobby blade with some light pressure to cut through the overspray film just on the sections where I wanted the matte clear coat to go. And on this part, we're applying the matte clear coat on the exterior to give it a matte finish in several sections. I think it turned out pretty cool. I even picked up tint film to tint the windows in the cab. I picked this up from an auto store. It was actually a huge pain in the butt to not get any air bubbles. So next time I'd probably just go with the Tamiya smoke paint instead. I think it turned out really nice. It was just more of an effort than I think it was worth. Now onto the decals. Take your time with this step. As I mentioned, the decals will need to be individually cut by hand. Use a hobby blade and with a steady hand, cut around each decal. Try not to leave any of the clear components if possible. Tamiya has a numbered guide in their instructions manual where each decal goes. I like to apply heat with the hairdryer at the end to loosen up the decals, make sure they apply better, and also activate the adhesive. The scale builder in me, of course, I could not finish a build without some scale lighting. My Trick RC makes a really great controller for this. It has both high and low voltage ports and can be powered off the balance port of your LiPo. It includes both a 2 and 3S adapter for that, and also has an on and off switch. I'll put a link to each of the LEDs I used in the description box. We're going to be using a 3mm LED red pair for the rear, and the front 3mm orange pair and a 5mm white pair. I also added a pair of white strip lights to illuminate the cab. Did some nice cable management on the interior, and the controller fits under the cab without getting in the way of mounting the body. I think it adds a nice touch, nothing crazy, but adds a nice scale touch to the build.
All right, let's test full throttle. Here we go. Full throttle here. Going uphill though. Oh God, we're in the freaking sand. No, we're not an off-road vehicle. Oops. All right, full throttle again. Nice. Braking. Full throttle. Braking. Pretty good. Really responsive. Ooh. Fun. We're gonna have to get used to going in circles. Ovals. Whoa. Never thought it'd be so fun. Pretty good, pretty freaking cool.
All right, so race setup tips. I am a newbie racer, so these are not from me. These are from my friend Jason Hood and also my Instagram friend, Dave Crenard. They are really successful racing these, and I'm gonna share them with you with their permission, so thanks to them. And as I mentioned at the beginning, these are gonna vary by your club, so make sure to check the local rules before you make any of these mods. I mentioned this earlier, metal bearing kit. That's gonna be a major upgrade to the plastic bushings. Dave mentioned removing the grease from the metal bearings and actually applying a light oil-filled shock upgrade set if that's allowed. Though some people mentioned they have success with the plastic friction stock shocks. Up to you. As I mentioned with their tires, gluing the front sidewall to really stiffen that up, prevent traction rolling. Some people mentioned doing multiple coats on the front, 1 or 2 on the rear. We're gonna start with 1 and go from there. We discussed heavier weight diff oil in the front, lighter in the rear. You want your car to pull you around the track. And I'm gonna include a list here of everything else that has been mentioned to me. Thank you so much to Jason and to Dave for sharing their insights with me. I'm gonna try a couple of these on my build at the outset, and I think I really just need to practice.
Oh God. Oh, no. This is not an off-road truck.
If you don't notice an upgrade, you're not ready for it yet. And lastly, I'm gonna need to pick up a race transponder. Those run like 115 to 140, so we're gonna need one of those to track our lap times. Of course, I'm not gonna be as good as the pro level guys that go there every week. I just wanna make sure that I'm improving myself every time I go. That is it for this build. So fun. I want to acknowledge the passing of Mr. Tamiya. I dedicate this build to him. Thank you for watching. Really fun build. Definitely fun to try something different other than crawlers. Of course, what is next? We're gonna have to go racing. Huge thank you to Incogni for sponsoring this video, making it all possible, and to my dedicated community of patrons on Patreon for their monthly support. And of course, to Tamiya for sending one of these kits to feature on my channel. Until next time, I'll see you later.